Hello, hello. It is March 2nd, 2025, and I've come back from two tournaments. The first of which being a USCF Blitz tournament at Brooklyn Game Night. I didn't record any of it, but it's the same place I did back in October. That event, unfortunately, it's not uploaded to USCF yet, but I did go 9.5 out of 10. So 9 wins, 1 draw. I'm loading the USCF page again, and yeah, it's not uploaded quite yet, but I did win, barely. I think the next person was Anthony at 8.5, and I won $50, so that was pretty cool. I was pretty confident. Well, I was very unconfident just in general coming into it, but when I, remembered who was there, I was like, okay, I think I can win this tournament actually. Like, I'm fairly confident against everyone. And the funniest part is that in both of the games I played against Anthony, because it's double round robin, in both of the games I played against Anthony, I was down in exchange, but I won on time, which is just like, that's Blitz. It's 5-0 Blitz, no increment, so it is what it is. But anyway, we fast forward to today, where I've played a regular rated game. I believe it's called regular, right? I can never remember. Yeah, regular. The regular rated games, 3 rounds, 25 minutes, delay 5, the usual nonsense here in New York. Yeah, just getting straight into it. I won't spoil the results until after each game specifically. So going into the first round, I'm playing against Ivy Huang, who is a new to OTB person. So they literally didn't even have the membership when they showed up, and I overheard them talking with the guy up front with trying to get a membership going and this and that. So so unrated, don't know. They could be really good and just never play tournaments, or they could be okay and never play tournaments. Don't know. But going into it, I have the white pieces, so I start with e4, of course, e5, knight f3, and now knight f6. So we go into a Petrov, but not really. I play d4, which is my weapon against the Petrov. It's funny because I even need to remember. I actually need to remember what the line is after knight takes e4. I think it's just taking on e5, if I'm not mistaken, but she played knight c6 instead. I got to review my notes on the Petrov after d4, knight e4. And the line I was hoping to go into was something along the lines of ed, e5, knight. I guess I don't think it matters where. Oh no, I think knight e4 is slightly more accurate. Take on d4, and against d5, trying to protect the knight, you take on passant. Knight's still hanging, so knight goes back to take on d6. And from here, you kind of just develop. So something like bishop d3, bishop e7, castle, knight c3, knight c6, whatever, right? So, yeah, she played knight c6. And I'm like, okay, well, I could take the pawn, but then she takes my pawn, and I don't really remember how to play those positions or what goes on in there ever. So I went with knight c3, and I'm like, okay, so this is a 4-knight Scotch. And then I was like, okay, this should be fine. And she played bishop b4, and I was like, oh wait, I don't remember how to play against. I don't remember the lines against in the 4-knight Scotch, because I don't actually play it. Hell, I don't even play the normal Scotch. I played Scotch Gambit. So I was like, oh shoot, I don't even remember how to play this. So I hadn't figured this out on my own already. D5 to me just looked like the principled move. It gains space, attacks the knight. But I totally could have taken here. And if we trade and goes here, there's always bishop b2. Or bishop d2, sorry. And then, if takes. Yeah, my pawn structure is a little awkward, but it's fine. So after d5, she played knight d4, which makes a lot of sense. Just like trying to pressure my position. I played bishop d2. I obviously don't really want to take here because ed and I'm losing a knight. So bishop d2, just unpinning myself and getting ready to actually like move these pieces around. She castles. I continue with bishop d3 just to defend this the pawn one more time in the event I want to play something like knight e2. She plays knight g4, which I didn't really know what the idea was here because obviously there's no queen h4 because I can just take. I don't even have to castle that way, so that's not even a threat really. So I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to make you waste time. I'm going to play h3, send you back to f6, and then I'll take on e5. But then she sacked on f2. And I'm like, whoa. That doesn't look right. So I spent some time here. I was just making sure, double checking everything was good, you know, making sure there's no like random trap. And I was looking, I was like, oh yeah, you never actually played e6 yet, so I'm not scared of the light squared bishop coming out to like maybe sack on h3 or something. So I was like, okay, I should be safe here, you know, against queen h4. I can like block with g3. I mean, my knight's still there, so that all looks fine. So I take on f2. She plays d6. I'm like, okay, so I'm just up a knight then? Is that what's happening? I didn't want to castle or manually castle on the king side just because she can very easily just start launching stuff at my king. I was really intending on castling queen side with like queen e2. Well, not right away, but maybe like queen e1 here, and then just like run this way slowly. But I was like, all right, it's fine. If I trade down, then I should be winning because I'm a piece for a pawn. So I take on d4, and I was totally expecting ed, knight e2, so ed, knight e2, and then maybe something like going back and could play rook f1, and or you can even go queen f3 and then just like go king e1, king d1, get my king a little more safer. But she plays bishop c5, which is a good move. Obviously pinning the knight to my king. She's going to take on d4 next turn with the pawn or the bishop. Either one works. I played bishop e3 just to kind of force the trade to happen at some point because, you know, I can easily go knight f5 and I'm no longer pinned. She goes queen h4, which, you know, I've known that this was coming for a while and I still had g3, so I played g3. You don't really want it. Well, I mean, the queen's hanging, so you don't want to take there. So the queen has to go back to f3 because I have complete control of the h-file, you know, not including, well, actually including that square. So queen f6 check. I played queen f3, offering a queen trade. Just because, again, I'm up a piece. I'm up 2 pieces now, but she's going to win one back in like a turn or two. So I'm basically just up 1 piece. And I should be able to convert an endgame up a piece. So ed, and I'm like, and I thought, okay, well, I can trade queens first and then figure out this fork here because, you know, it's protected by the bishop. And I was like, okay, well, danger levels, I have bishop h6 attacking your rook. I kind of forgot that this came with check. But even then, it's not too bad because after cb2, I can just play rook b1. And it's kind of hard to defend this pawn. You're stuck on getting to a3, and I'll be able to figure out a way to dislodge it. So king e2, getting out of the check, cb2, rook b1, bishop a3. I was surprised she played bishop a3, to be honest, just because the rook's hanging. Oops, the rook is hanging. And I can just go... I figured, okay, I can just win the exchange. She's actually up 2 pawns, which I didn't really realize in the moment, but yeah. I didn't realize she was up 2 pawns here, but I'm going to win one back in due time, and because she played bishop a3, she's losing the exchange, so maybe she would be up 1 pawn after all of this. Yeah, but then the f6 pawn's weak, and I should be able to grab that too, so At any rate, bishop a3, I take the rook on f8, and then played g4. I wanted to move my rook, but obviously the pawn is hanging, so gotta play g4 first. C6, rook hf1, just sticking to my plan of trying to win this pawn, and even playing rook f3 to attack the bishop here once I move my bishop. So cd5, ed5, king g7. Not really anticipating this plan of rook f3 to try to hit the bishop and win the pawn back. So yeah, rook f3, h6, bishop e4, now revealing this attack and also protecting my pawn, which you can't really attack as black, but you know, maybe, no, that doesn't even work. So yeah, just revealing this attack more than anything. But she plays bishop d7 and doesn't see the lateral attack, so take on a3, rook c8, and I can win the pawn back. So I'm basically up a rook. I mean, she has like one pawn for my rook, but that's not really much of anything. I can very easily win one of these pawns. Well, maybe not that one, but I can win one of these pawns whenever I want. So I'm just up a full rook and then some. Rook c4, just attacking my bishop. I played bishop f5, trying to get the bishop trade. I guess it's not technically forced unless you want to play bishop e8, but I don't think you want to play bishop e8 here. That just looks really bad. So instead of that, bishop b5, but she didn't realize that it was under control by my rook. I understand what the idea was. You were trying to do like a discovered double check kind of thing, but it doesn't quite work here. So I just take the bishop. She goes rook c2, trying to win the pawn, but again, she doesn't realize that this is hanging. So I take the rook, and here she resigns. Pretty straightforward game. I looked briefly at the delete 13 moves. Yeah, I briefly looked at the opening and realized that d5 is not actually the best move. It's actually just knight takes e5. Well, more specifically, I looked at a Naroditsky video, and he said in one of the 4-night Scotch games that knight takes e5 is the best move. I didn't really understand why, but I'll look into it maybe a little later. At any rate, though, it was a good game. She was actually better at one point. Around like this exchange, I think I just misevaluated. I think I was still under the guise of being up a piece and didn't really realize what was going on. But I mean, you know, it's 2 rooks, 2 bishops, 4, 5. Oh, she still has 8 pawns. So yeah, I'm down 2 pawns. I'm gonna win this one back probably after something like rook e8. I should be able to win. Well, I might not be able to win that one if she plays something like that. So, oh well. Such is life. Going on to game number 2, I have the black pieces against Daniel Edelshik. I'm not sure how to pronounce that, so I apologize for the horrible pronunciation. But we're going to go with Daniel, just for the time being. I have the black pieces this time. So here we go with e4, c6. I play the Karagan against e4. We go into an advanced bishop f5. Other move is c5. I tried learning c5, but I didn't like the positions out of dc all too much. So bishop f5, I just stuck with it, and I was like, okay, I'm just going to learn the other main lines. And he played h4, and I'm just like, oh boy, another tall. I need practice against this because it's so rare for me to see online that I don't actually know it very deeply. But I faced it twice here at ChessMax, so it's like, gotta be ready for it. I play h5, which is, I know the main move. h6 was recommended to me by Dlugi, but that allows g4, and then I have to go bishop d7. I didn't really like that all too much, but h5 is a good move. I know it's a playable move. More than playable. I know it's one of the main moves, so I was just like, whatever, just h5. He plays bishop g5. I wanted to play e6, of course, but that hangs a queen. So I was like, okay, I could just play queen b6 then. Attacks b2, and I can play e6 later. But after bishop d3 takes, queen takes, I decided to snag the b2 pawn, forgetting about e6. And it's like, I knew that e6 is a very important move to play in the tall, but for some reason I just like didn't play it. I might have thought I already played it or something, but I just grabbed the free pawn. And one of the TDs told me after the game that yeah, queen takes b2 is actually a trap in the tall. I didn't know exactly what that trap was, and I need to look into that, but you'll see in the game that I thought it would be fine. White plays e6, and here is where it's like this position might get a little rough. My f7 pawn is super weak. I don't really want to take here because of this check here, and I don't know, this position just looks really bad. Knight f3, knight e5 is coming, and I'm basically like scrambling to try to get my position under control. But yeah, so I was like, yeah, I don't really want to take on e6. It might still be good, it might be the best move even, but I know generally it's not the best idea because you already traded your light squared weak bishop, so now this becomes a big weakness. I ended up playing knight h6 just to defend the f6 pawn, or f7 pawn. I also considered knight f6, and I did consider this line, but something told me this wasn't good. I think I didn't like bishop f4, and I can't really run my king anywhere, and my knight's going to be awkward to develop. So that's why I eventually ended on knight h6. If you take here, I'm taking with the rook, and I'm hitting this pawn, so I'm like, that's fine. Yeah, so I mean, black is not going to take, or white is not going to take on h6, but white continues with knight e2. I finally decided to take on a1, take the rook, just because I figured he was going to castle, and I just wanted to get the move in before there's any like real counterplay. I didn't really anticipate my queen getting trapped, or at least not with like getting something on the way out. Like at the very least, I'll be able to sack for a knight, and then it's queen for a rook and knight, which is not the worst thing in the world. Like it's still playable. Just yeah. But anyway, queen b3, b6, defending the pawn here. Castles, g6. I'm trying to develop my bishop this way because I can't move my e-pawn. He plays knight d2, and here I do have to sack my queen now because these squares are all covered, right, by the knight, by the queen. I mean, by the queen, and this is protected by the knight. So yeah, I have to sack my queen, but this time I'm getting it for a rook, which I was like more than happy for because it's I traded my queen for 2 rooks, and I have an extra pawn, so I was like, okay, I should be a little better here. It's just a matter of figuring out how to actually mobilize my pieces and get them into good spots. So I continue with bishop g7. I think here maybe e6, f takes e is probably a good idea. Maybe, but this is coming, which looks a little uncomfortable, and yeah, knight f4 just hits 2 weaknesses, so maybe not the best idea. I just went with bishop g7. I figured bishop on a long diagonal, that's relatively open. I'm pressuring the pawn on d5 or d4, so I figured that must be good. E takes f7. I don't know why I didn't take with the knight here. Yeah, why didn't I take with the knight here? Yeah, I don't know why I didn't take with the knight. Oh, I think it was because when I castle, I lose the pawn. Maybe? I don't know. But yeah, I don't know why I didn't see that. Yeah, I take with the king. He plays queen f3 check. I play bishop f6. I was also considering knight f5, but then g4 takes, you know, like, and I was like, ah, man, h5 is coming, question mark. There's some other ideas. I can't remember what I was exactly envisioning here, but these knights are going to come in and probably just like cause problems. So after bishop f6, what I wanted was just something like this. And I mean, my king has some pawn safety. I was going to play knight d7, and I thought everything would be fine here. But after queen f4, my knight is attacked twice, so I have to play king g7. He takes my bishop, I take back, and I didn't notice he had this check queen c7, and here I realized that I'm losing a knight. So I mean, material-wise, like if you're gonna count numbers as hard numbers, it's only -1. But you know, I'm not convinced that this is better for black or even equal for black. But yeah, continuing on. So I should just mention, after queen c7, knight f7, queen b7 now hits my rook. So the only way to protect my rook really is to move my knight somewhere, either d7 or a6. And I chose a6 just so that after he recaptures, he's not actually attacking any of my pawns. You know, if I went knight d7, he can go here and hit this. So knight a6, queen a6, rook he8. He goes back to d3. Here I'm going to try to use the advantage of the two rooks and just double them up. So rook e7, knight f3, rook a e8. Knight g1 I thought was a weird move, but it kind of makes sense. You're kind of trying to defend this knight. If you just make a random move, I can try to trade down like this, and now it's equal. Or I'm up a pawn. So knight g1. I played knight d6, getting my knight to a better square. g3, knight e4, king g2. I wasn't really sure what he was going for in this position. And to be frank, I don't know what I was going for in this position. It's very double-edged. It's like it was hard for me to figure out how to actually make progress in this position. But eventually played knight f4, and he's hitting my g6 pawn. I played f5 to block the queen's vision. I also considered knight f5, but again, take here, and I'm like, it's a little spooky. And I mean, maybe there's something here. I just don't know what. I mean, knight h4 doesn't work, so yeah, I didn't really like the prospect of that line, so I went f5. He goes knight f3, and I'm like, okay, you're probably going to get the g5 square here, which kind of sucks for me, but what can I do? I mean, I guess knight e4 is what I can do, just to trade that off, and then his pawn is like stuck there, kind of. But he plays knight e5, which is a really nice outpost for his knight there. I can't really get rid of it too easily. So I knew this position was kind of going south, but at the same time, I didn't really... well, I saw his way forward. He's attacking two of my pawns. So I was like, okay, how can I defend my pawns? And I thought, oh, just rook e6. And I played this move without putting too much effort into it. And of course, the one move I don't take time to consider is the move that blunders, which is the knight taking on e6 with check. So I was like, okay, well, I just lost that. I'm probably going to lose the game, but let me at least try to, you know, finagle some nonsense going on, right? So he continues with f3. I play knight d6. I don't remember why I didn't play knight f6. Oh, I think I didn't want to play knight f6 just because it's like, where am I going to go with this knight at all? It's like nowhere. I also can't even go knight d7 right away, so I have to play like rook e7. But then he's going to trade it off, and I'm like even worse. So I would have to go this way, to be honest. And I mean, even then, it's like, what am I doing? There's nothing. So, yeah, so I played knight d6. He takes on c6. I forgot my rook was defending that. I'm going with a5. Again, I'm kind of just making moves to try to find some vague counterplay. Knight e5, going back. Rook e7. I'm trying to get to the c file here, and I don't really have a good square to put my knight. So yeah, I just went rook e7, queen a6, rook c7, trying to attack the pawn. He takes my pawn, I take his pawn. King h3. I played knight c4 thinking take, and I'm like, okay, at least there's something to play for. But yeah, he played queen g6 after knight c4, and I'm like, oh yeah, it's mate. I think in the actual, like, I think over the board, I think I actually played king g8 by accident. But I mean, same difference, right? I made it anyway, so I was just like, yeah, all right. But I think I played this, and then king h8, knight g6 mate. I think that was the final position because I made an illegal move. But I mean, like, who cares? It's mate. It's mate in 3. So, yeah, I definitely need to look into the tall. I need to look at why this is a this queen takes b2 idea is a trap. But most of the ideas, like, I was actually like playing the game, like playing a Karo Khan, and not just like being super passive and trying to figure out what the hell is happening. So that was an improvement. I just totally forgot to play e6, right? Like in this position, I totally can play e6 and I'll have a normal game. No problems. But yeah, that's how that went. Moving on to the third round, I get black again. I am playing, I don't know how to pronounce this, so I'm going to apologize very much. I don't know what nationality or ethnicity he is either, but I'm going to assume it looks Japanese to me. And I mean, when I was looking at him, I wasn't really paying attention to what ethnicity he was. So Gosuke Hata, maybe? My guess is it's Japanese, but I don't really know. Like, I really don't. I'm sorry. But yeah, he is rated about 1200. I should mention my opponent in the last round was rated 1025, but he's definitely underrated because we talked a little bit after the game. He said he was like 1800 chess.com. And I was like, oh, that's not 1025. But at the same time, I'm like 1500 lead chess and I'm only 1150. So it's like, you know, what can you do? Gosuke plays another e4 game, so I'm going into another Karo Khan. And this time, he plays f3. I'm like, oh, the fantasy. Let's go. I'm like, I was like mentally rubbing my hands together, like, I know this. So I played the critical and the sharpest line, which is de4, fe4, e5, and then he played bishop e3, and I was like, that's not a move I'm familiar with. I didn't really understand what the point was, and I was like thinking like, I can try to take the pawn here, but you might take back with the queen, and after a queen trade, knight f6 here, there, here looks kind of dumb. And then I'm like, wait, your f file's open. I can play queen h4. And I was looking at lines with queen h4, and I'm like, oh, this looks fine. So I also looked at g3 taking here, and I mean, I'm attacking the rook, but you can play knight f3 there, I'm pretty sure. But anyway, I went with queen h4, and I'll just double check this. Yeah, you can play knight f3. But even then, this is kind of like a pretty bad position because I have bishop g4 next. But yeah, he played bishop f2, so I was like, okay, taking another pawn with check. Bishop e2. Did I say bishop e2 twice? Bishop f2 and then bishop e2. And here I was like, okay, well, I know this pawn is free, but do I actually want to take it? Because right now, I only have one piece developed, and it's my queen, which is going to just like end up moving like 7 times in the opening. But I also was like, okay, so take here, here. And I was like, I didn't like this position at all, right? How am I developing my pieces here with this pawn on e5? So I rejected taking the pawn on b2 or g2. I was just like, all right, I'm gonna just develop and protect my pawn on e5 another way. So I played bishop d6, knight c3, and then here, I don't know why I decided it was a good idea here, but I decided to take the pawn, and I was like, yeah, screw it. Yeah, I don't know why. But like I mentioned, bishop f3, queen g6, Queen d2. I assume he wanted a long castle, but as you see, he didn't do it for a while. Bishop f5, bishop h4. I totally could have taken another pawn, but again, I'm getting a little wary of just taking all of these pawns because I have like no development. He's got 4 pieces out. He can easily play like rook c8 or even knight h3 and start trying to attack on the king side. So I was like, yeah, I don't want to gobble too many pawns. I want to like make sure my king is safe before I do anything, before I start gobbling material. So I started with knight d7, getting ready to castle, except not really because the bishop's intercepting. Queen e2, and then I played f6. And I thought for a second I blundered bishop h5, but I have... No, I did blunder bishop h5. I'm going to sneak a peek with the engine. Yeah, it's +3. Okay. So bishop h5, long castle, take. Pawn takes here. And it's +3. Yeah, okay. So I did blunder with f6 by playing because of bishop h5. But he played bishop f2 and didn't see it, so I was like, oh, thank God. Let me get out of here. And so I played queen f7. I think he noticed after I played queen f7 that he could have done it, but oh well. Bishop e4. And I was like, oh, you're inviting me to trade when I'm up 2 pawns? I will gladly accept it. So knight takes e4. I dropped my bishop back to b7. I didn't want to trade the bishop because I wanted a long castle. And the problem with long castling right now is that he can open up this diagonal and really make it annoying for my king to kind of just like exist there. b3. Again, I'm surprised he isn't castling sooner, but okay. I castle, but then he does castle as well, so I was like, okay, fair enough. Knight e7, so my development's basically complete. I'm a little passive, but I'm up 2 pawns. He has some dark squared weaknesses on the king side, and his knight is not developed yet, so I think this position is pretty good for me. D takes e5. I decided knight takes e5 because I'm going to trade rooks. But he does it for me and gives me the d file, so I was like, okay, fine by me. Again, I'm really okay with trading pieces because I'm up 2 pawns and I should be able to win the endgame here. Bishop g3. I don't know why he didn't take this pawn. Or actually, no, you shouldn't take this pawn, right? Because if you take, I go here. Actually, maybe this. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think he should have taken the pawn there. Okay, but he played bishop g3. I played knight d4, or sorry, knight d5, just activating my knight a little more. Isn't my position so nice? Just like this like knights and pawn chain kind of thing. But anyway, he plays knight f3, and I'm like, all right, another piece to trade. I am okay with that. I play queen e7 after the trade, just trying to get in here and kind of be a nuisance. Really, my plan was to just go here and try to go mate if he comes in. All right, so let's just say, for example, this. I can't go here because this, drops a piece. So I was going to go here, and it's like, how do you stop mate? And if you go this way, I have double check, and I was like, this has to be winning somehow. I didn't know how, but I just figured it has to be winning somehow. Maybe like this. Yeah, I mean, whatever. You get the idea, right? Let me get rid of these moves in my study. So, what was I saying? Knight f3, queen takes f3. I'm like, okay, fine. And I could have traded off this bishop here, but if I do that, well, he would take with the queen. And again, just like this diagonal being really weak was kind of the one thing I wanted to avoid. So I went queen e7 to, again, like I said, just get ideas here. He plays king b1 to sidestep all of those. I play queen a3 anyway. because what I really want to do is just play knight b4 and just mate. He takes my bishop, I take it back. I actually thought for a while here, I was like, is there a way I can somehow just play knight b4 anyway? Let me check. No, because of knight c3. Okay, fair enough. So I'm glad I didn't do that. But yeah, I take back. So I took back queen g3 check. I'm like, sure. And then he defends against the potential knight b4. I don't know how to talk anymore. But I'm wondering if he might have been able to take this pawn anyways, and you know, pick apart this stuff here. And I mean, you're defended for now, at least. Unless he was concerned about like something like this, I don't know. But going out of position after queen g3 check, I just played king c8. He defends against, like, I guess he's defending the a2 pawn really, but that's just another opportunity for me to trade. So now it's a queen rook endgame, except I'm up 2 pawns. Queen d6, consolidating. Queen h3 check, king c7. So he wins a pawn back, and I was like, all right, whatever. Let me just try to not lose the other 2 ones. So rook d7, queen h3, g5. I'm like, all right, I need to mobilize my pawns and actually use my advantage and not just have them sit there. Rook g1, queen d4, hitting the rook, also defending the backward-ish pawn. But he plays check. I go back, offering a queen trade. Of course, he's going to decline. And he unfortunately drops the h-pawn. So I know I just said I was up 2 pawns, but I was only up 1 pawn. But now I'm back to being up 2 pawns. So I was like, all right, fair enough. He goes rook c1, just preventing any like back rank ideas. I go queen f4 to offer a queen trade. I was thinking if he takes here, this feels kind of drawish. I mean, you can go here. I wasn't so sure about this position. Like, I think I can still win it, but I wasn't totally confident in it. But he played queen c3 instead of trading. And then, what did I play? Oh, I played g4, and I was like, you know what, screw it. We're both on around like 5 minutes, 4 minutes on the clock, so I was just like, all right, I'm pushing my pawn. You got to figure this position out. And he starts making some moves. Queen a5, king c8. I should have played queen king. What the hell? I should have played king b8 to protect the a7 pawn. I don't know how to talk apparently. But so yeah, he takes it, but I was like, all right, whatever. Pushing my pawn. Like, you got to figure this position out. There's no more checks. Well, I mean, I guess there's a check here, but I can just go back up, or I can even block with the queen. But he goes queen b6. I'm like, all right, I'm about to promote. What's your plan here, buddy? He goes rook e1, and I was like, I see what you're scheming. A funny move would have been just promote anyway, and just have him go here, but that just, you know, it's kind of stupid. So I figured the threat was rook e8 check, rook d8, queen takes with mate. So I was like, oh, that's your plan. So I played queen c7 just to block this here. He still goes to rook e8, rook d8. And then he takes my rook, and I'm like, really? Like, well, I guess you don't really have any other move because I'm going to trade your queen after. Well, I don't have to trade your queen, but you're going to lose anyway. So we trade. He goes back to f2. I think I've already stopped notating at this point just because we're about like 3 minutes now or something. So the rest of the moves are vaguely going off memory, and they might be a little off, but the ending position is still correct. I remembered that one. I gave a check, king b2, and now I'm going to promote. So he really should have played in this position here. If he didn't want to trade, I mean, you can't trade queens. You basically had to play this, and then I would have had to go something like, what's the fastest way to do it? Probably just here. Or no, that's not the fastest way to do it. What is the fastest way to do this? Because I need to get here while avoiding all of his pawns. I also could have just pushed the f-pawn probably. Like just sat my queen here and just pushed the f-pawn. What is the fastest way to do this? It might be 3 moves, I guess. I mean, so that would be winning. But he played queen f2, so I get to protect the promotion square with check and then promote. Obviously, he's not going to queen trade. He takes a pawn, which was not the move because it forces the queen trade, and now I'm up a queen. So I was like, okay, this is just like I should be able to just win this without thinking too hard. Again, I don't remember the exact moves here because I was just moving instantly, and I was like, I'm gonna win. Yeah, queen a5. I think here he like touched this king or something and then went here, but I was like, I'll let you make that move. Whatever, I don't care. It's mate. So I ended the tournament 2 out of 3. And I actually won like $33 just because like the adult section or the championship section, which is anyone over 1,000 or an adult, they get to play in the championship section for cash prizes. So I won $33. It was a sole winner at 3 out of 3. I think he won $100. It's like a little kid. And then second place was a 3-way tie, and we each got $33, which I don't know how that works out. Oh, maybe they took second and third place pool and put it all together. So I think that makes sense because first place is 25%, and I think second and third is 15 and 10% respectively. So another 25, something like that. But oh wow, it got dark. Oops, it got dark. But yeah, so I ended it with a positive result, 2 out of 3. And yeah, the Daniel guy, the second game, the guy was definitely underrated, so fine by me. I'm hoping to keep doing this well, but you know, we'll see. Next tournament in 2 weeks, same place, same time. We'll see how it goes. And I'll, of course, put the USCF rating update in the description whenever it actually comes out. And I'll put the Blitz update as well in there, just because. But thanks for watching, and see y'all next time.